It's unthinkable. Men we thought of as heroes are really anything but. Sadly, though, the accusations couldn't be more serious. A small number of our special forces have brought shame upon themselves, the elite regiment they served, and the country itself. An exhaustive 4-year investigation by the Defence Inspector General has found soldiers were potentially involved in shocking war crimes in Afghanistan. His report, set to be released within days, will detail a litany of heinous crimes committed against defenceless Afghans, including alleged executions. Tonight, we'll not only tell you why it got this bad, but also the one piece of good news, how this story was uncovered rather than covered up. The spectacular beaches of northern New South Wales couldn't be further from the battlefields of Afghanistan. Yet remarkably, this is the location of one of the most pivotal post-war moments. After Australian troops withdrew from Afghanistan south, this woman was given a highly sensitive, top-secret mission to infiltrate the inner sanctum of our most elite fighting men, the soldiers of our special forces. It's been a task like no other.
One of the most disturbing things for me was people saying the phrase, "It happened all the time."
You say it was happening again and again. What was happening? What sort of actions are we talking about?
It was killing as a sport. That was really what was the most distressing.
Sociologist Dr. Samantha Cromford has dug deep into the minds of our toughest warriors. Some told her more than they told their closest confidants. But what she's found is not what we want to hear. The brutal truth about what Australian soldiers experienced and perpetrated in combat in Afghanistan.
I was really conscious that I'm a woman who has never been to war and, that there's a whole lot of stuff that I don't know. But the things that were described to me, there was no doubt that these things had occurred. And I heard similar stories from different people, from different organisations who told similar kinds of stories. That was what was disturbing. That's why I had no doubt. And if I had have thought these are just kind of, baseless rumours, I just wouldn't have reported it.
Samantha Cromford's assignment, ordered by the Army's top brass, has made her the enemy of many. They've tried to dismiss her as a clueless outsider, hell-bent on mudding the reputations of our decorated soldiers. But she's proven to be a wily fighter herself, and it's her work that's responsible for triggering the biggest inquiry in recent military history.
There is some disturbing conduct here. This will be difficult and hard news for Australians, I can assure you.
Tonight, as the nation braces for the damning findings of an independent Defence Force inquiry, we reveal what Samantha Cromford's uncovered.
These weren't one-off events, they weren't fog of war situations.
And how the bravery of those who refuse to be silenced...
It is going to be hard for some people to accept.
...will help to heal the damage inflicted by a small number of rogue army men.
To be validated and say, yep, you're absolutely right, yep, those things did happen. Wow, that's huge for all of us, It's part of the way to move forward.
The sunlight now flooding into the dark corners of the Special Forces exposes terrible shame. For Dusty Miller, this moment has been a long time coming. In 2012, the SAS medic was deployed to Afghanistan.
He's coming with me.
It was there, while treating an injured Afghan farmer, he experienced something that still haunts him. A senior SAS soldier removing the patient from his care and allegedly stomping him to death.
I regret that every single day and every single night of my life, that I didn't do something about that. I should have said no. However, I worked with an organisation that was quite brutal, and I'm not sure how things would have turned out if I had have done that.
At the time, Miller reported this war crime to a senior military colleague, but he was ordered to stay quiet. It's at that moment he realised the unthinkable truth. For some soldiers, the rulebook for the war in Afghanistan had been thrown away.
I guess the best way to explain it is that you have a moral compass. It's pretty set to true north. And after a period of time, that compass needle spins around. But you still know that it's still at north. I believe I know what's right and wrong, and what we did and what happened there was very, very wrong. And that's affected me profoundly.
Dusty wasn't the only one left feeling betrayed. Last year, I interviewed 2 serving SAS soldiers who broke the code of silence to speak out about war crimes. They were risking jail time if they were identified, but told me it was more important to expose their fellow soldiers' wrongdoing. Their voices have been changed, but the words are theirs.
I think they actually thought they were above the law. I think they actually thought they were not going to be caught, that it was a free-for-all.
The second serving SS soldier was equally adamant action needed to be taken.
What are you scared of? If we've done nothing wrong, if an individual has done nothing wrong, what has he got to be afraid of?
The stories of war crimes became so frequent, eventually they were heard by Angus Campbell, the then Chief of Army. His response was as extraordinary as it was unmilitary. He enlisted an outsider to get to the bottom of what had really happened in Afghanistan. Samantha Cromfits was given the most important job of her career.
I think people trusted that I was outside the organisation. I was looking at this quite objectively. I had nothing to win or lose, regardless of what I reported.
Initially, Cromfits was told by Army Chief Campbell to win the trust of our elite fighters and to report back.
When was that moment you realised this might be bigger than I thought?
We're not talking about a couple of, sort of fog of war events that were, perhaps confusing to understand or to have happened. This is sort of deliberate, repeated patterns of behaviour that happened over time.
Were you shocked when you realised the scale and systemic nature of some of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Samantha Cromfits' skill was disarming dozens of our battle-strong fighters. In hundreds of hours of interviews, they confided in her their secrets of war. What they told her was so confronting, it bordered on unbelievable.
Did you hear about civilians being executed?
Yes.
Did you hear about young people, teenagers or even children being killed?
Mm-hmm.
Were these people who were posing a threat to our armed forces or people who were killed for killing's sake?
No.
They were posing no threat?
Posing no threat.
So they were killed, as you say, killed for sport?
Look, what was described to me in some circumstances is that there was a killing for sport mentality.
Coming up, we've never let this go.
No, I can't let it go.
Out of control on the battlefield.
You mean war crimes became a rite of passage?
That was expected and encouraged in some circumstances.
How the rules of war were ignored.
Why weren't they stopped?
And good men silenced.
And then I said I wasn't happy. Move on. It's early in the trip. A long way to go.
That's next on 60 Minutes. In 2015, Samantha Cromfits was given an almost impossible task. Army Chief Angus Campbell asked her to build trust with Special Forces soldiers who'd fought in Afghanistan, to record and pass on their darkest secrets. She didn't know it back then, but her work would spark the biggest war crimes inquiry in recent military history. This is the first time she's spoken publicly about the full details of her report.
One of the first things when I first interviewed or spoke to a young soldier from a Special Forces unit, I was just talking to him about, how he was liking being in the unit and would he go back to sort of, big army. And he just said, absolutely not. The rules are different here. So the rules are different and there's no way I could go back to be treating like a child again, was what he described to me. And it really stuck with me because I think that whole idea that the rules are different is what is this kind of slippery slope into a series of things that go wrong, and where internal tensions have festered over time, it just creates an environment that is conducive to things going wrong.
What Cromfits found out was difficult to comprehend. Some of Australia's most elite fighters kept kill boards on their walls, and they were obsessed with wanting to chalk up deaths, even if it meant killing defenceless civilians or prisoners. This small band of rogue Special Forces soldiers believed they could operate with impunity.
How does a kill culture, killing for sport culture, become, in your words, the words from your report, deeply embedded in the culture of the Special Forces?
It doesn't happen overnight, it happens over time. Special Forces are known for everyone calls each other by their first names. It is very different to the rest of Army. So it's those small things that mean they're different, they can approach things differently, that I think have created an environment that was conducive to some really terrible things happening.
It took Cromford's months to interview the soldiers, after which she wrote an explosive confidential briefing and gave it to the Army Chief.
The gravity of these descriptions does not simply come from the details of particular events. It comes from the emphasis that most often accompanied these stories. It happened all the time.
The briefing paper was leaked to the Age newspaper last month by a confidential source. It's not hard to understand why the military hierarchy was so concerned.
I was given the impression that there had been a large number of illegal killings, often gloated about, that had been reverse engineered, a sanctioned kill list. This was described to me as one of the most insidious, abhorrent and shameful things we could have been involved in. Guys just had this bloodlust. Psychos, absolute psychos. And we bred them.
Your report makes it very clear that what you were told did not involve fog of war incidents, but involved calculated and deliberate executions, absolute blatant breaches of the rules of war, sometimes targeting prisoners or the unarmed or the weak. Why were you so certain that was the case?
Well, I had no reason to doubt the accounts that these people told me. There was no other agenda other than to just share their story with me, to give me some context of what happened at the time.
What gave you the belief that war crimes were being glorified? What were you told?
I think in descriptions of them being perhaps celebrated and normalised and almost a rite of passage for some people.
You mean war crimes became a rite of passage?
I think in some instances that was kind of behaviour that was expected and encouraged in some circumstances.
One of the many disturbing allegations in Cromford's briefing paper concerned two 14-year-old Afghan boys, with claims they were shown no mercy by Australian Special Forces troops.
They were stopped and searched, and then their throats slit. The rest of the troop then had to clean up the mess by finding others to help dispose of the bodies. In the end, the bodies were bagged and thrown in a nearby river. Again, it was impressed upon me that this was not an isolated incident.
Do you believe that story to be true?
Yeah. I have no reason to doubt it.
You did write down extraordinary anecdote, extraordinary story after extraordinary story. Throats being slit, prisoners being murdered, farmers being executed, reports of executions being covered up over and over again. Weren't you incredulous that this might all be being made up or at least exaggerated?
It would have seemed odd that so many stories were so similar and so... and people from quite different, times in Special Forces and really with a lot to lose telling me those stories.
Army medic Dusty Miller served with the SAS in Afghanistan. Deploying overseas was meant to be the highlight of his 25 years as a soldier. He saw the war go bad up close.
We did some great work. We were actively seeking bad people and we wanted to stop the things that they were doing. There was collateral damage with that, and there were certainly things that we stepped over a line.
Dusty insists only a few soldiers stepped over the line, but when they did, innocent Afghans were killed.
We'd get a job, we'd fly in, we'd go into a village, whatever, and then it would unfold. It was just then, we then jumped, we didn't step over the line, we jumped over the line and we made our own decisions and things happened because we wanted that to go that way, We were the dominant force, there's no two ways about that, yeah.
How does one small group of men form a kill squad and yet another who serve alongside them become horrified by that?
Well, I think it takes certain people in those groups with a lot of influence for that to happen. And why weren't they stopped?
Why weren't they stopped?
I think because they were incredibly empowered. They'd been, on a number of deployments. They had this kind of incredible street cred. There's an allure around being in the unit. And, I don't think we should forget that it's not just those soldiers in the Special Forces units, but it's those people around them that potentially facilitated those behaviours as well. These groups become very empowered to do what they want.
And is the price of being part of the in-group that when you hear about a kill squad, you look the other way?
The price is high, and how you untangle yourself from that in-group when you realise that actually it's not something you want to be a part of is really difficult. I also spoke to people who did, who did call out bad behaviour and who were basically belittled and left broken, really.
Dusty Miller tried to do the honourable thing. He reported a potential war crime.
He's coming with me.
The brutal murder of an injured and defenceless Afghan prisoner, but was ignored.
I spoke to my senior regimental medical officer, and I told him what happened, and I said I wasn't happy, and I felt that there was a serious breach of ethics here. And unfortunately I was kind of, these things happen, move on, it's early in the trip, got a long way to go.
You've never let this go?
No, I can't let it go.
How dark has it got for you?
Oh, the darkest, yeah, the darkest. It's hard to explain how dark it's been bad.
But unlike the officers on the ground in Afghanistan, Samantha Cromford did take seriously what men with stories like Dusty Miller were telling her.
I mean, their actions are heroic, but I think they feel a deep shame for being associated with it at all. And I think that's what's sort of staying with people.
As more soldiers came forward and talked to Cromford, the more shocked she was. Far from hiding it, Lieutenant General Angus Campbell told her to keep digging.
He just told me to write it all down. Bad news doesn't get better with time.
At the end of your inquiry, did you believe, having heard all that you did, that civilians, prisoners, the defenceless had been executed in cold blood?
Yes.
And why were you sure of that?
Because I heard similar stories over and over.
The imminent release of Senior Judge Paul Brereton's damning 4-year report and the Prime Minister's move this week to appoint a special war crimes investigator means Cromford's work has been validated and vindicated.
These are incredibly complex events involving actions and conduct in another country in a war, and that is not a simple process.
But back in 2016, when she wasn't able to discuss or defend her findings publicly, she became the target of vicious abuse.
What was it like to be the subject of all that hate?
It makes you feel incredibly vulnerable. But I also knew that for a lot of the people commenting, they actually had no idea what they were talking about. And I was gobsmacked, actually, by some people very publicly, public figures coming out so strongly, denying that, any of these incidents had or could have ever occurred. I found it, bewildering.
The campaign against Samantha Cromford intensified, reaching its peak in 2018, when powerful voices like former Defence Minister Brendan Nelson cast doubt over those confronting accusations.
Where lies the national interest in tearing down our heroes?
Nelson's criticism was in defence of his close friend and Australia's most famous soldier, Ben Roberts-Smith, who'd just been accused by some of his own Special Forces colleagues of committing war crimes in Afghanistan, allegations Roberts-Smith denies.
I stand by Ben Roberts-Smith. I believe in him, and I will stand by him no matter what happens in the future.
How did you feel about those sorts of comments?
They were quite bewildering, really, that he would come out so publicly and so strongly without knowing the information.
And this is the treatment that he gets from elements of the Australian media.
Last year, when I interviewed serving SAS soldiers outraged by the silence around what went on, they too named Ben Roberts-Smith as allegedly being involved in the murder of a prisoner.
Let's go.
One incident they told me about was the killing of Afghan farmer Ali Jan by one soldier, moments after he was kicked by another.
The allegation is that he was kicked off the cliff and then was executed at the bottom of the cliff.
Who do you think kicked the man, the prisoner of war, at Small Cliff?
The individual that kicked the detainee off the cliff was Ben Roberts-Smith.
And you're saying this about Australia's most famous soldier?
It is going to be hard for some people to accept, but that is the truth.
We travelled to Afghanistan last year to investigate what really happened to Ali Jan. In Kabul, we met his heartbroken wife and children who've been waiting years for justice. Assalamu alaikum. Nice to meet you.
They killed him. The whole world says they killed him. He has not committed any crime or cruelty. They killed him for no reason.
Coming up,
He didn't die of his wounds, I can promise you that.
the toughest battle of all,
He was murdered.
Oh, I believe so, yeah.
righting the wrongs
I wish I'd have done more.
of Australia's military shame.
I think the command really has to understand why these issues manifested in the first place.
That's next on 60 Minutes. It's taken 5 long years, but Australia is finally facing up to the terrible war crimes committed by our own soldiers. But sadly, the innocent victims in Afghanistan are yet to see justice. Assalamu alaikum. The family of Ali Jan, a man allegedly kicked off a cliff by an SAS soldier after being taken prisoner and handcuffed and then shot by another soldier, has never recovered from their loss.
I am so sad. It becomes hard for the day and night to pass. I keep thinking about why this happened to me. Why is he gone for no reason? Why did such cruelty happen?
The alleged murder of Ali Jan in 2012 will, according to multiple sources, be described in detail in the classified version of the Inspector General's report. The Federal Police is separately still investigating Ben Roberts-Smith over his alleged involvement in this killing, after interviewing SAS eyewitnesses, and has referred a brief of evidence to prosecutors. He will also be referred to police for investigation in coming weeks for other alleged war crimes. The VC recipient denies any wrongdoing. A separate incident, one that's changed Dusty Miller's life, will also be detailed in the Inspector General's report, although the specifics may remain classified. The former SAS medic gave evidence that a potential war crime was committed when an Afghan civilian in his care was taken from him by a senior soldier.
I assumed that he was killed, basically, or he didn't die of his wounds, so I can promise you that.
He was murdered.
Well, I believe so, yeah.
Dusty remains deeply distressed by what went on back in 2012, and earlier this year contacted the family of murdered man Haji Sada to ask for forgiveness.
I treated your father's wound and sort of made him as comfortable as I could. Unfortunately, as we were about to leave, one of my other colleagues asked to take your father away from my care. The injuries that your father had sustained were not immediately life-threatening. Something very bad had happened to your father, and it was wrong. And I'm very sorry for what happened to your father, and I wish I'd have done more.
I am very thankful to him for helping my father. He has done as much as he could do. And when things were beyond his ability, then no one can hold one accountable for.
You shouldn't have lost your father that day. And I am so sorry that happened.
The release in coming days of the Inspector General's report will confirm what soldiers like Dusty have been saying bravely for years. 60 Minutes has confirmed at least 12 alleged executions of non-combatants and prisoners will be referred to police, along with at least 10 serving and ex-SAS soldiers.
To be validated and say, yep, you're absolutely right, yep, those things did happen, well, that's huge for all of us, you know. It's part of the way to move forward.
For those who helped uncover this scandal, people like Samantha Crumpets, there's one simple wish. That while we mightn't like having our military history rewritten, it's essential if we're to avoid repeating the sins of the past.
I think the command really has to reflect and understand why these issues manifested in the first place. And I think if they don't understand that history, then they won't be able to recognise when it might be happening again. So why should we care? I mean, we should care because so many young Australian men and women aspire to be a part of the Special Forces. And if we ignore it, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that say about our values and ethics and what we want our kids to aspire to be? And it says a lot about how we value our army and what we expect of them.
Stroke his mane, talk to him, they like that as well.
The Inspector General's final report will close one chapter for Dusty, but open another. He's founded an outdoor adventure program for veterans struggling with their own demons, as he yearns to find his own peace. On horseback, the horrors of war fade away, if only for a short time.
It's grounding, it's freedom, it's not thinking about those things that intrusively enter your mind. It's something else. It's another way. It's better than taking drugs and seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist. It's important. It's basically it's purposeful, you know. It gives them some direction. It gives them something to look forward to. It gives them a purpose in life and a way forward.
You looking forward to it?
Oh, immensely.
Hello, I'm Liam Bartlett. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.